Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday. And Tuesday is normally a day for me that has no feel. It's an old Seinfeld line of Jerry telling Newman, Friday's got to feel, Saturday's got to feel, Sunday's got to feel. Well, it's a feel-good Tuesday. Shamus is always in a good mood, and I'm always excited to see Shamus. And now Tuesday does have a feel for me. Also, when I do bet, which I never do, but I did last night and won, Shamus knows that you get a good high off that, some good endorphins. But we're back today. We're going to be talking about El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, which I'm excited to get into with Shay. I hadn't talked to him about it until today. I haven't asked him what he even thinks about the movie. So I'm coming in blind like the rest of you. I'm really looking forward to hearing his takes on this Vince Gilligan film. But Shay, first of all, I know it's your busy season. We're into the second full week of January. How are things going on the stress meter?
The head is still afloat. Thank you, and hello to yourself. But yeah, the head is still afloat for now, so I'm pretty happy. Things are going well as can be, and now I'm excited to get into this. El Camino. It was a good movie. I have a couple critiques, nothing major, but I do have a couple critiques. But this is the period to an unbelievable story. So I'm excited to break it all down.
Yeah, I have to ask before we start. Saturday night, did you get some chills after another 4-1 collapse?
Oh, yeah. I was a little disappointed, but riding a bit of a hot streak before that, so it's okay to drop one to one of the better teams in the NHL. And I know how good Colorado is. I did end up watching the third period and the eventual Devin Taves overtime winner, but it is what it is. I wasn't happy with it, but they're gonna come.
You're okay.
I'm emotionally I'm stable, but
Okay.
just not above that.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that because I know 4-1. Toronto, it's got to be 5-1. Four is a bad score for them.
I never even thought of that.
I had to ask because I know it can be sensitive, those 4-1 leads. But El Camino, I wrote down a bunch of questions for you. I thought we'll do a recap of sorts. I thought we could get into some big topics, the concept of the movie, and kind of talk about it in big strokes. But off the top, Shay, what was your overall take on this film?
I enjoyed it. There was times where things are slow, and if you go in thinking this is going to be an action-packed movie, you're probably wrong. It feels a lot like an episode of Breaking Bad, which is where it has its steady moments, and then all of a sudden it peaks. And we'll get to the scene, obviously the biggest scene of when we get to the welding shop, but everything about it was pretty steady and felt really like an episode, which I thought was really cool. And I kept thinking, well, if I was a huge fan of Breaking Bad and I was watching this after you do have Better Call Saul, but the actual show, it's I'm sure would you agree that it's not at the same level as Breaking Bad?
No, for sure. No.
So if you're a true fan of just Breaking Bad and maybe you haven't even had a connection to see what Better Call Saul, this would be huge as a release. I can't remember. I think it was 2017 or 2018 when this came out. Yeah. 4 years after the show ended. I can just see people going insane over it and really, really, really loving it. So it's interesting because obviously we just finished the show and I see it from a different perspective. I viewed it as just another episode. But as someone who followed along with AMC and then finally watched this 4 years later, it would be spectacular, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that it's like an episode. And that was one of my questions to you. Should they have made a 6th season and not made a movie? Is there more meat on the bone there?
I think not. I think with the spinoff of Better Call Saul, I think that was its own thing, and I think that was great. I know that has a lot to do with before Walter White, Jesse Pinkman ever enter Saul Goodman's atmosphere, but I think it was time. Without Walter, I can't see the show being as good, like as great quality, even with, if they do what they did in this show with a lot of flashbacks and a lot of older moments throughout the show, I think it would have been good. But I don't know, without Walter there, I just don't see presence enough for sixth season. What are your thoughts on that? I'm interested to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I don't think so, but it would have been interesting because, like you said, there are points. Like I think the beginning in the movie is really interesting because you get to go through Jesse's kind of PTSD of living in that cage. I like that they pointed that out, and it wasn't just a seamless transition back into life, because that's not normal. He was in there for at least 3 months, we're guessing, potentially longer, where he did nothing other than we'll talk about the scenes with Todd, which are fascinating for multitude of reasons. But I enjoyed that. But I don't think there's enough. Again, I think Aaron Paul proved through this show that he could play a lead. I don't know if you've watched Westworld. I haven't yet. It is on my bucket list, but I don't think he plays I know he's in that show, I think, in a sporadic.
He is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
don't
is.
think
I
he's
think
the lead in that show.
I don't think he's in the first season. I think he comes in either at the second or third season, but he does play a lead role for most
Right.
of that. I can't say I've never watched it myself, but like you, it's on my bucket list of things to watch. I mean, it is HBO, and it's kind of this, sci-fi / Western thing that they've
Right.
tried, and I guess it's been very successful. So it's nice to see that he's kind of transitioned from something as big as Breaking Bad into something like that as well, because he's like you said, he's good enough to play that leading role.
Right. And it shows your range as an actor that you can do it. I mean, he went from dying in the first season to people thinking, okay, he can be a lead role.
Mm-hmm.
I look at a guy like Jason Sudeikis, who I think is a really good actor. I don't think he can play a leading role in a movie. That's just, for me, I just don't see it. But Aaron Paul, I think, can. But you mentioned critiques, and we'll get into the bigger scenes, but in this show, I think what really makes it interesting is characters coming and recurring characters throughout. And whether you see their face, you get to know Gus's men. When you see Gus, you get to know Mike. You get to, you see people and you're like, okay, this is who that is. You don't really forget who they are. You mentioned the welders, and that's kind of the big scene, but we see them throughout the movie. And they play an integral part in Jesse ultimately getting a safe haven, getting a second chance. And my critique is we have no idea who these characters are. And it just it fell flat for me that they are just, well, okay, who are these guys?
Yeah, with little, with no real relation to the show besides the tiny detail we'll get into. Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, they could have definitely did something. I don't know whether it was, maybe it was with Gus. Maybe they could have interpreted him into that because there's no real mention of his name or, anything with to do with him. Maybe it was Mike. Maybe it was one of Saul's associates. But yeah, just falls flat, like you said, without having no real background of who these two guys are, which we'll get into.
Yeah, it just didn't work for me. The concept of him wanting to get out, and how he goes about doing it. What'd you think of that?
Good. Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed just, this, constantly being inferior, constantly on the run. It gives a sense of tension to the movie, which I thought was really interesting because at any point you're thinking, well, he could get caught if, someone rats him out, if, they put 2 and 2 together with Badger's car. But yeah, no, I thought that was really interesting that, the whole movie is just him trying to escape and to really put this life behind him, which, it doesn't seem like there's ever that. It never seems like that's possible. It never seems like putting such a crazy, chaotic life like that. And especially what he just went through the previous 3 months, you're thinking, well, there's no way that he's going to be able to pull this off. He's not maybe mentally stable, or he's not in the right mind frame to pull something like that off.
Right. Yeah, agreed. And the fact that he's still sharp, that he knows where he's going from the get-go, that he must have been thinking of an escape plan of what he's going to do for a while.
Yeah.
Not knowing that, Walter would ultimately be a safe haven. I'm sure he didn't expect this, didn't see that coming. But let's get into it, and we'll talk about some big themes throughout that we like, dislike as we go through it.
Okay.
We start with a flashback, and like you said, this happens throughout the it's half the movie, really, if you think about it. Flashbacks, and it's Jesse talking with Mike about being out. This is clearly a conversation where Mike, I think around the time he does the deal with Declan in the show, because Jesse was out at the same time, but they share a conversation about where would you go? And he asked Mike, he's like, like, come on, like, don't bullshit me. Like, give me an answer. Like, give me, actually have a conversation with me. And this was a really good scene between two of, the two great characters of the show.
Yeah, knowing their relationship and how close they got during their duration in the show together, they really do have a bond. And you can see Mike's lighter side. He's so stern all the time in the show with almost everybody, but with Jesse, he's a little softer and has that soft spot that you've mentioned multiple times. And it is really, really nice to see. I always thought, was this a flashback? Was this just a dream? You know what I mean? Because for a while, I felt like, was it just him? Did he make up this vision? Because I thought it was where Mike died. That's kind of like
look like that place. I thought the
looked
same
like by the
thing.
riverbed, and I was like, okay, well maybe I don't know if Jesse was ever there. I thought maybe that was the scene before Walter killing Mike, and maybe they had a moment, then Jesse left. But I could never make it up in my mind. But ultimately, I didn't try to think too hard about it and just tried to enjoy it.
Yeah, and as a whole, do you think that they brought characters like Mike, like Walt, like we'll get into another character back just kind of for fun for the actors because they enjoy each other's company so much?
Probably, yeah. I would imagine that it has a major factor. I mean, not only giving them kind of their final farewells. Of course, a lot of the actors are dead, or most of them, I said, would be dead. But yeah, just to have them on the set one more time, thinking, okay, well, this is our last hurrah. Well, we want to go out with a bang, and without spoiling it, I guess there's a lot of cameos from characters from the show, which is really, really cool. Besides, maybe Hank, Marie, and Gustavo are the ones that come to mind. Obviously, Walter Jr. is not also in it, but yeah, without having those ones in it, a lot of other ones do come back, and I think it was appropriate as a kind of the final send off to have at least a little scene in there for everybody.
And they're the most important people in Jesse's life, so that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
And Mike in this conversation says, "Go to Alaska," and Jesse's like, "Alaska?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're right. Like, second chance, fresh start. I can start fresh." But Mike does throw in a good line. He said, "Kid, you can never make things right. You can never eliminate the past, because that's one thing you can't do."
Yeah, I think Jesse says he basically wants to make things right before he leaves, and it's Mike's basically shutting that down and saying, no, like that'll never happen. And Mike's a wily vet, so he's speaking straight from experience when he says that, because he's a man with mistakes, as we both know. And like I've never seen the show, but I believe Mike plays a key part in Better Call Saul, which I plan on watching at some point in my life.
Yeah, we learn more about Mike and his background as a police officer, and some of the things he did while as a police officer. So yeah, but like I said, cameo from Mike, great way to start the movie. I mean, it's hard for me. I love Mr. Ehrmantraut. He's my favorite character in the whole show, and Jonathan Banks just plays him perfectly. So then we go back to the present. Jesse in his screaming / crying / euphoric screech out of the compound, breaking through the gate. But he probably can't go a kilometer, Shay, because before he gets too far, he just hears sirens coming from every which way.
Yeah, before he can actually see the cars, he just sees the sky light up red and blue, and he quickly pulls into a driveway and presses park, and he finds a gun. And you're thinking, how does he know where this gun is? Because he seemingly grabs it out of nowhere, and you're like, well, how does he know it's in there? We later find out why he knows, but then he just kind of hides, and of course the cops quickly go by. Obviously, they're going to the compound. They want to see what's going on, and Jesse's basically out of harm's way. Interesting location, and obviously an interesting couple people who we get to see next. He drives, and is it on TV or something like that? Or I think we see the conversation between Badger and Skinny Pete.
Yeah, we kind of pan to like a close-up of a TV, and it looks like they're playing like a Grand Theft Auto or a racing game, and they're talking about how Skinny sucks at it and Badger's chirping him, and they're having this a classic discussion between the two that doesn't have a whole lot of brain power. But as they're chatting, Jesse kind of just goes to the door, and he presses his face against it and just kind of hammers it a few times, and they're kind of like, who the hell is it? They're looking out the window like, who the hell is that late at night? He opens the door, and Skinny says, "You lost, bro." And they realize after taking a glance at him and his scarred up, beaten face that it's Jesse.
Yeah. And if anyone's wondering, I mean, his hair is longer than it normally is. He's usually got this clean buzz cut. He's got a beard, which he's never had on the show. Obviously, he's letting everything grow out. Like you said, though, scars, beaten face. So he'd be non-recognizable to anybody from his previous life. Sure enough, they kind of let him in. They say I need to get rid of this car because obviously this El Camino's hot. Todd is there. They're going to put two and two together. Okay, well, whoever left this place left with Todd's vehicle. And sure enough, they put it in the backyard and kind of hide it with the gate. They put a tarp over it, and then they bring Jesse in. And, Jesse's just basically eating food because he's probably so malnourished, and he's just eating anything he can't get his hands on.
Yeah, he's eating like a cup of soup and like old cereal packets, and just eating like he's never seen food before. And then he passes out. And it looks like it's been half a day at least that he's been sleeping. The two guys are listening to the news. Basically, there's a manhunt for Jesse. It kind of says on the TV that Walter is dead, and they know that he's this kid that taught him in high school, that they're partners, and they're listening. But in the middle of all this, Jesse opens his eyes, looks up, and kind of sees the ceiling, and he starts completely freaking out, from awakening and screaming.
Yeah, that's PTSD you mentioned earlier. It really kicks in, and then in these next few scenes, as he's looking up at the cage that he's seen for 3 months with the tarp over it, that he was basically a captive in, and he starts, like you say, losing, and he's tearing stuff down. He's tearing the room apart. The two Badger and Skinny Pete both enter the room. He points the gun at them because he doesn't know who they are. Basically, he's just on a frenzy. And then finally, they were able to kind of like calm him down a little bit. They bring him in. They try to get him some new clothes, and they say, hey, like probably a shower is your best bet. But we obviously see that the shower kind of just relieves more demons for him than helps.
Yeah, as he gets in the shower, the water starts coming off, like starts pouring, and he backs away. He turns off the water actually, because we see him pan to them basically spraying him with a pressure washer, or like a hose that you'd wash a cow with. And it obviously torturous, not a fun experience. And you also see the scars on his back. He's been beaten. So they kind of say, maybe don't shave because it'll make you, less recognizable to the police. But he comes out, he's got the shaved head again. He's left a little bit of stash, but he's basically back to OG Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah, and Skinny Pete's like, oh, why'd you do that? But I think for him, like getting rid of that is kind of getting rid of this demon that he's been, this,
Mhm.
I've been a captive. Well, I've got to do something to change, or I'm going to see the same face and I'm going to get the same thoughts as I always has. So
Right.
it
I
makes
think
sense for him.
a big theme of this whole movie is closure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he needed, like you said, he needed to rid himself of that, get rid of that image, try to move on, which is not an easy thing to do. But he said he comes out and, he's like, "Okay, well, you guys aren't listening to the news?" And they're like, no, there's like a lot of it. And he's like, he asks Skinny for a burner and he makes one call. And it's another, when I watched this for the first time, obviously this is your first watch, I had no idea this is who he called, but I love that Joe, our favorite local junkyard, you know, Carl and Billy Madison, if you will, who was in probably, I think, 4 episodes. I looked up his IMDb, but he helped them with the batteries. He destroyed the RV. He's played some really integral roles in them escaping the law. So of course, Jesse calls Joe again. It only makes sense. It ties up perfectly.
Yeah. And he's like, key piece is he's trying to get rid of this vehicle, because obviously this is the one thing that's been that's tying him there. We see Joe pick up the phone. He's in his office watching all the madness ensue. At this point, we know that it's a statewide hunt for Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah.
It's all over the news at this point. It's talked about by their mayor, and sorry, the mayor and governor of the state. And it's all eyes out for one Jesse Pinkman. And Joe could have said no, I'm not going to help you whatsoever, but he's happy to oblige. He comes over with the geez, what are they called? Tow truck. He comes with the tow truck, comes in, and he's like, no problem. And he says he'll help him out for free. So the amount of respect between him and Jesse obviously went a long way. One last thing Joe does is he takes what seems to be one of those, I guess, bug trackers, you want to call them.
Yeah.
And he takes it around the car. He's like, okay. And just as he's about to, kind of flip it and switch it off, it starts to light up. And we find out that there's basically a tracker just went off on the vehicle, and their location's basically been ruined.
Yeah, they've been compromised. He runs to the car and Jesse's like, "Joe, what the hell? Like, I need you." And he goes, "No, they're coming here right now. So I think you should get the hell out of here." He speeds out and Jesse's like, "What am I going to do?" And Skinny and Badger have been helpful to this point, but Skinny really steps up and he goes, "No, no, no, you're not getting in that car." He doesn't let him get in it. He says, "You're going to take Badger, where's your whip?" And he says, "It's right there. Okay, give me the keys." He gives Jesse the keys, says, "You're going to take my car. You're going to drive it to Mexico." He asks Jesse if he's going to Mexico. He says, "No, not going there." Okay, perfect. Even better. He said, "You're going to drive 4 hours, then pull off. But don't hide the car so that, police can't find it, but don't just leave it out in the open." So it's pretty smart. She said, "Okay, cool." And Jesse says, take Badgers. They're not gonna be looking for that car. And that's all good. He says, "I'll stay here with the whip. I'll pass any lie detector. I don't care. Like, they won't get anything out of me." And it's a true sign of friendship. And they've always been these clownish people that we thought were just hanging around with Jesse for a quick fix, for a quick bump shay, but they really showed themselves, their true colors in this sense where they come to Jesse's aid in his ultimate time of need.
Yeah, absolutely. He was about to drive off on his own. Surely he would have got caught, and that would have been it for him. I find it funny that Skinny Pete, who's not a guy, we'll say not a very bright guy, does come up with kind of this master plan to get out of there.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Badger pulls away with Skinny's car, and it's kind of just Skinny and Jesse left. And at one point it's funny because you always see Skinny Pete with this toque / this cap on, and he gives it to Jesse, says you might need it for cover. And as he's walking away, Jesse goes, Skinny, like, why are you doing this? And Skinny says, because, bro, you're like my hero. And that's like a chilling scene, because obviously it just shows how much Badger and Skinny thought of Jesse as not only as a friend, but someone they looked up to, and like who's able to take care of himself, and became this criminal, and we'll say run or half of this
He
criminal
had
empire.
success, you know?
Yeah, he was a successful guy, and he went through a lot in his life, and he was there when he needed the most, and his friend was able to help him out.
Yeah, that was a great scene. The way they end it, and also through this, they give him the cash in their pocket. Everything they have, they give to him, and he just kind of left like he doesn't even know how to process this because he hasn't had a friend. Walter was not his friend. Mike was his closest to a friend, but Mike would never admit that. Mike's like that old grandfather that loves you but doesn't say it. He does it more through action. So this was another big moment. And before Jesse splits, he takes a key off the chain of Todd's El Camino, which you're kind of thinking, okay, why? But as he's leaving the area in little Fiaro, or it's a piece of shit car that Badger's driving, he pulls over. About 20 cop cars roll by, a SWAT team, military. It's quite the scene that's going on here.
Yeah, you're thinking like that. Yeah, Skinny is he's not gonna have to take a lie detector test. They're gonna probably beat the shit out of him just to get this location away. And you're thinking, God, like as Jesse's watching all these cars go by, he's got to have a little remorse for his friend who he kind of just sewered. And Skinny's just gonna have to take it on the chin. God knows what's gonna happen if he does.
Yeah. So yeah, it's this scene where then Jesse drives to an overpass, and he's kind of laying low. He's kind of sleeping in the car under it as he kind of lowers profile a little bit, hopefully. But in the meantime, we get another flashback. And before we get into this scene, Todd is a big part of this movie, Shay. And he was only in the 5th season of Breaking Bad, but I do think his impact was very profound on the show. Jesse Plemons, who, this really skyrocketed a very good career for him. He's been in some very good things. I think he's a good actor. What did you make of him being such a prevalent character? Did you expect to even see him in this movie?
I think you once mentioned that he was in the movie. I didn't know to what
Okay.
extent though.
Right.
So I expected his presence there, but I didn't know to what extent, I guess. So I was pretty happy that's just to see him. I thought it was funny because in the show he's a lot thinner, but when he's released into the movie, he's obviously gained a little weight.
He's at
He
least
looks a lot
30
different.
pounds heavier in this
At
movie.
least, and it's noticeable, but at the same sense, it's not like gonna ruin it for anybody. I don't believe, and he's the only one I can think of that actually looks a lot different between the two time periods, the 4 years, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But no, I thought it was interesting because it obviously plays a lot into the closure, like you said, for Jesse, and putting everything behind him, putting his his last 5-6 months, the last 2 years, you could say, behind him. And Todd plays a crazy large role in how he was abused, and how both psychologically, mentally, and physically, obviously. And we see some really neat scenes in the movie from Todd.
Yeah, that's for sure, old Todd. Do you think, we'll talk about the scenes, but do you think that what we see in the movie only grows the hatred that Jesse has for Todd?
I think so, absolutely. Yeah, no, I do, because Jesse's got a big heart, and we'll say that I call it the stunt that Todd pulls on his cleaning lady would only grow the hatred, and the just the disgust for how Todd lives his life, and how he thinks about things, and how carelessly he's able to give and take life. And I think that would affect Jesse a lot.
Right, agreed. So flashback, we see Todd opens up the cage, and he offers Jesse a cig, and it's just funny where he's got the contraption, he puts it in the bucket, lowers it to him. and he doesn't know how to communicate with people. Like, he's just a very weird, we saw this on the show. He doesn't communicate like a normal human. He's got a guy in a cage, but he talks with Jesse like he's his buddy. He's just
Which is
like,
so unusual.
yeah, he just goes, yeah, I heard there's a chance of rain coming today, but I don't know. I don't see it. Not many rain clouds up there. And Jesse's like, yeah, they're wrong a lot. And he goes, yeah, yes. I mean, 40 to 60% chance. I don't buy it. Like, it's supposed to be hotter tomorrow. And Jesse's just like, yeah, like, okay, like, what do you want? Like, just let me sit here. And Todd's like, Uncle Jack is away. Actually, everybody's away. He bought a chaparral. He's went boating, and I really need your help with something, and I'd love for you to help me out this weekend if you could. And Jesse's probably thinking, holy shit, I get to come out of here and not just cook. Yeah, like, I'm up for anything. And he says, but if you do try to escape, I gotta kill Brock. So just to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah, he even gets Jesse to like look up at him and to basically acknowledge that he knows that he'll kill him, which is strange. But yeah, it's funny because for someone who's keeping a literal human being captive, it's not like they have those it's not like you would expect those conversations to be so we'll say mature or so I'm lost for words right now, but they just have a more normal conversation than you would like for someone who's being captive and a captor, I guess you would say.
Yeah,
and it's so strange.
You don't see in Prisoners, Hugh Jackman and the old lady are not conversing this way. Hugh Jackman and the kid are not conversing this way. It's not like, hey, hope the day's going well, so Jesse has to lay down on the passenger seat, and it's the whole drive to Todd's apartment. And funny scene, Todd's like, pats him on the head, good boy. And he gets him to, help him put the roof / cover on his El Camino first.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I got this bad boy. He's such a weird guy. He jumps into this pool. It's covered, but clearly it's filled in with cement. He's like, oh, he probably thought I was going in. and he's like, okay, so now, we'll just go upstairs. And trying to think, do we release from the cutback now, or is it still?
Yeah, it cuts from there to Jesse has driven to Todd's, and he has the key. He breaks into the apartment. He has to sneak his way in because it's this old man watering flowers who we'll see multiple times in this movie. And he sneaks in the door, and despite the police tape, despite everything, he's in there by himself. And he starts, you see him kind of looking for things. And it's quick, the rest of this movie, the cutbacks, because at this point, we don't really know why he's there. So we cut back to where we were, and Todd's talking to the old guy about the flowers, and he's like, so annoying and intrusive. He goes, I wish he should be bowling right now, but whatever. And then there's this other awkward scene where Todd goes, what do you think of my apartment? Pretty bitchin', eh? Yeah. I wanted to paint the walls like Easter eggs. So you like it?
Jesse's he just goes along with it. He's probably just like, yeah, I mean, whatever, Todd, like, you're an idiot, like, get me the hell out of here. But it's just he's looking around, and Todd walks into the kitchen, and Jesse follows, and we're soon come across a dead body on the floor. And my first reaction, Juggy, watching this, I thought this was Andrea, and I thought that this was some kind of psychological warfare that Todd was trying to pull. We really find out that it's an older Spanish woman, and it's Todd's cleaning lady. And and
he goes just like, Jesus Christ, and he goes, what happened? He goes, she's my cleaning lady. And he's like, what did she do to you? Like steal or something? She goes, no,
Doesn't
no, 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 no. Don't you say that. She's as honest as the day is long. Like she was a great cleaning woman, but Uncle Jack always told me keep your money on hand if you need it. And she found my money and she came to me honest and she found it. So I had to kill her.
Yeah. And Jesse's thinking, what the hell? And he's just dying to ask, like, did you really have to do it?
Yeah.
But yeah, Todd says, I don't really want to talk about it. He just wants to get it cleaned up and then taken care of. And then it's this scene where
Oh.
he's seen where they're rolling him up in this mat, and he's like, oh, hold on. And he takes the belt off of this poor woman's throat and then puts it on like it was nothing. Like it was just another run of the day for him.
And also killing a woman with a belt. Man,
Yeah.
that's an aggressive way to kill a woman that you really liked and respected.
Yeah, there's some dark thoughts going on between those two eyes that
Yeah.
I would not like to see anytime.
Yeah, and she's been there 3-4 days, just to put this into context too, because
Yeah.
her body is very much decaying, and and so they get her rolled up, but they can't go yet because the old guy hasn't gone to bowling. So he tells Jesse while he's making himself some soup, can you go put this back in the book in my bedroom? And another interesting point of why you'd hate Todd, he has kept the spider that he killed, that Drew Sharp had. He has him in an aquarium. Jesse's just like staring at it. Again, the visions that are probably in his head, but he's got numbered books in order, full of cash. So he's talking to Jesse, like, I guess I'll have to find a new hiding spot for my money, and that kind of leads us back to the current state of things, Shay, where Jesse's there to find that money.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that Jesse just can't up and disappear with no cash on hand. So he's, obviously when he was at Skinny's, he thought, okay, where's the easiest way that I know I can grab cash quick and without having to do anything too dangerous? Well, Todd's apartment's got loads of cash and it's empty, obviously. And as long as there's no one there, it'll be easy in and out. We see Jesse go back there, and the next cutscene is all the books are on the ground, but not $1 bill is in there. So Todd talked about engineering something to hide his money better.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of what Jesse's stop has come to, is basically ransacking the apartment, tearing it to shreds, trying to find where Todd has hid all his cash.
Yeah, he goes through the whole night. He got a lighter first, and he's got a flashlight. He's ripped up the floors. He's gone the whole fridge. Every piece of food in there is out of the fridge. He's ripped up the carpets. He's looked in every seemingly nook and cranny of that home has been checked. No dice. So the next day, I guess part of this is an interesting scene. It's that night, he's looking, he's kind of like, hey, where is it? Like, I can't believe this. But he's looking at the apartment next to him, and he sees that his parents are on TV. And he turns on the television. He has to turn it down because he can't, no lights can go on. It's supposed to be a police crime scene. And his parents are like, Jesse, just turn yourself in. Like, we've known you've done so many bad things in life, and just turn yourself in. Like, come on. Not supportive.
Yeah.
Not supportive.
No, not great parents. And you can tell it's more bothering them that this bad attention and bad media is coming to them than it is, their son is in danger, their son is on the run. They could give two shits about Jesse. They're solely invested in the interest on how this impacts their lives. So, and we see this conversation later. Jesse does eventually reach out to his parents, which I think is interesting. And, you could say he's learned his lesson. But yeah, no, he at this point, he's just on TV, and he's probably devastating that his parents care so little for him at this point. He's probably pretty upset.
So he hears this, he's kind of more pissed off. He's got his head against the fridge, and he's just like, oh, where is it? And he's like banging his head against it, but he hears something drop. He's what? and he opens it up, but there's nothing in there. Nothing. So there's the fridge door, but as you know, if you have a fridge, you got the side where you got the holders on it, and you can rip that open. So he cracks it open a bit. The whole door of the fridge is completely loaded with money. And Jesse's like, yeah, bitch, like I got it. But as he's got one set of the bills in hand, of course, just Jesse Pinkman fashion, he hears two people conversing, and he has to hide behind the counter as two men in police uniforms enter the apartment.
Yeah, and the only reason why he's not basically interrupted as he's in there is our friendly neighbor at Unit 11. And so where he's like, oh, your friends were just here. Like, do you have any more questions? I did a little bit of detective work myself.
Yeah.
and this guy is just a super like anyone who's probably
nosy.
Anyone who's probably in and out of that place is probably getting a conversation in with this old timer. And it does give Jesse a little time to hide away in a crevice of the apartment. And these guys are in here, and they say, okay, well, it's great that we're done with Buddy out in the hallway. He's like, okay, you take the front, I'll take the back, we'll meet in the middle. And sure enough, they're kind of looking through. They see that the apartment's been ransacked, so that they know somebody's in there looking for something. And we got a ginger, I'd say guy with brown hair, and then a ginger guy. I can't remember their name. Do you have their names by any chance?
Casey and let me see, I have them here. Let me see. I have them written down for sure, because he tells Casey to shut up about 1,000 times.
So anyways, this guy's at the apartment. He's looking through the bedroom, and sure enough, he looks in the closet, and I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be where Jesse's hiding. It's a dark closet. It's deep. I'm thinking, okay, he probably just hid away into there. And it's like, okay, he doesn't go in. I'm like, okay, well, that's a break for Jesse. And he kind of starts looking at the tarantula.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, looking at it. And all of a sudden, he's close enough that the bed is up against the wall. And in between the wall and the bed, all you hear is, and there's a gun pointed straight for this guy's face. And Jesse's basically lodged himself between the bed and the wall. And he basically says, I'm not a cop killer, but don't test me.
Yeah. So Casey and Neil are these guys' names. And so, he's got him perched there. And I guess we'll come back to, I guess this was a time for a jump cut, because it was at this time that Jesse and Todd are getting the cleaning lady cleaned up.
Oh, yes. Right.
And it's this scene where you have Todd at the bottom, and he lives on probably the third or fourth floor. So it's a pretty steep drop. And Jesse's got the body. He's like, just drop her down. Like, I'll get, and she falls off the top and just hits the ground, a big thud. And Todd's like, it's okay. And then he throws her in the back of the El Camino with the new roof on. And Jesse has to ride with the dead body the entire way out to the desert, while Todd serenades himself to Sharing the Night Together.
Yeah, great Dr. Hook song. It's funny. It's right, because he's just in the front, and you're thinking, okay, well, Jesse's probably sitting up front with him. Yeah. And then the scene pans over from Todd singing, having a grand time, waving at the truck driver, trying to get the truck driver to honk. And then you realize he's in the back with the dead body. The dead body rubs up against him, and just an overall traumatic experience. And you can see just how poorly, Jesse Plemons, you can see how poorly Todd treats Jesse, just overall, like, no quality of life sitting in the back with a dead body.
No, especially like 3-4 days, like in the heat. Oof,
yeah,
that thing is, ugh. So, he gets there and he forces Jesse to dig the grave alone. So this is not exactly, he goes from cooking meth to digging a grave. This is not exactly a great weekend for Jesse.
Yeah.
Digs the whole grave, puts her in it, has to put the dirt back on her. And it's this awkward scene where he's done, and Todd sits next to him and he goes, you got anything you want to say?
Like he knew her.
Yeah. And Jesse's just like, no, like, no, I don't. And Todd's just, yeah, nice lady. Excellent, excellent housekeeper. Oh.
That's it. That's all he
That's
says.
it. Like, that's
He
it.
doesn't. He doesn't say I'm sorry. He doesn't
No.
say this is your life was wasted. He just excellent house cleaning.
So, through all this, Todd smoked about 10 cigarettes. I mean, he's a frequent smoker. He must go through a pack or two a day. And he goes, can you go get me a new pack from the glove box? And you mentioned Jesse knew where the gun was at the beginning of the movie. Well, he opens it up and there's a Glock sitting there. And Todd's like, so did you find them? And Jesse just comes out and he's not pointing the gun at Todd, but he's got it down by his leg. And Todd's like, yeah, I'm gonna need that back, Jesse. But Jesse keeps backing up. But he doesn't shoot him. He ultimately, Todd says, on the way back, I want to get some pizza and beer, and because you earned that. You worked really hard today. And he asks Jesse what kind of pizza he wants, and he says pepperoni. He goes, oh, I'm a pepperoni guy too. That's awesome. And he gives him back the gun. Why do you think he gave him back the gun?
I think in the back of his mind, it's a grooming fear that they've groomed in him, and for Jesse not to react and to not do anything because he saw firsthand the consequence of what happens if he defied the boundaries that he was put in, and right. I think that scarred him so badly that he thought, okay, even if I kill Todd right here, great, but then I'm gonna have to try and get back to Brock as quickly as possible and know that something ultimately that Jack is going to come for me. And it's just this grooming that he's been put through, unfortunately, where he knows there's going to be consequences, and if putting Brock's life at risk was just never, I don't think, an option for him after this.
Yeah, I thought similar things. I just didn't think he could take the risk that Brock would be dead. Sure, he's escaped, but that's not more important to him. What's more important to him is that Brock's okay. He can suffer for the rest of his life if the people, really the only person he cares about left, gets some freedom. So that's really the end of that scene. And that's really kind of the end of Todd and Jesse, I think, for the movie, which was really interesting. But yeah, there's so many reasons why you'd hate Todd. And but like you said, we go back, Jesse says to Casey, I'm not a cop killer. But he says, call your buddy in here, but no shady business, none of this bullshit, or bullets are flying. And the guy says, hey, Lieutenant, I need you in here. And Neil he notices right away. He says, Lieutenant, and he says it's a trigger. And for me, Shay, this was clearly obvious. These guys aren't cops.
Yeah, exactly. Even the word lieutenant, like, why wouldn't you just say his first name, right?
Right.
So he's clearly throwing them signs, and Jesse's not picking it up on it. This guy's got his gun out right away. And as soon as he gets to, I'd say, the corner, he says, Casey, what's in there waiting for me? And Jesse pops out one gun to Casey's head, one to Neil, and he says, you better put that gun down, or your buddy's getting it. I'm not a cop killer, but I can be today.
I could be, yeah.
Yeah. And Neil, he puts up a convincing argument. He said, we got 6 guys downstairs, probably more, 8 maybe. That they're gonna hear that bullet, and you're done.
Yeah.
He's basically saying, you're the most wanted man. Give up, Jesse. There's no way.
We're your only hope, Obi-Wan.
Yeah, exactly. We're the only ones you can trust. And Jesse does. He obliges. He puts both guns in the air, puts them down, and it sure enough gets on his back. But the telltale sign, like you said, if you didn't know it already, these guys don't even have cuffs, so that they're not real police officers. They tie them up with
rope.
Yeah, with rope / or whatever they have. I think it's like extension cords.
Yeah.
And Jesse's just kind of making a frantic scene. He's like, fuck, like, get me out of here. And these guys like, And before they do anything, they hear a knock on the door, and it's our good friend Unit 11, who's revisiting for a third time in this show, and basically saying, "Hey, by the way, I got something if you guys need it." And Casey kind of answers the door and says, "What the hell do you want?" He's like, "I got a handwritten note from Todd. There might be fingerprints on it. You might want to take a look at it." And it gives enough room for Jesse to basically talk his way out of the situation.
Yeah, he goes, "Okay, you're gonna kill me. Okay, then you have to kill the old man and every other witness in this place because you're not cops.
Yeah.
So good luck getting out of here with. And I know where the money is. If you kill me, you'll never find it. I bet your life on it." So Neil's like, fuck, okay, he's got me. So he unties Jesse and they go to the fridge and he opens it up and Neil's just, he's so euphoric. And he calls Casey while the old man's filling up a Brita to give, I think he's making a cup of tea. He's like, "Just keep the guy for 10 minutes. And he goes, yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah, he'll keep talking here. And Jesse starts putting a third of the bag, of the third of the money in the bag. Neil puts a gun to his head and he's like, "Piss off. Okay. I'm taking this, whether you like it or not." Neil doesn't let him take half, but he does get a third of the money in there. And he takes the other half for him and Casey. And they do get out of there none the wiser.
Yeah. Jesse puts up a pretty convincing argument of why he shouldn't die. Basically saying, if you don't give me this money, I'm dead anyway. So I'm taking it. You can shoot me in the head if you want. And he's right. He gets his third. It's a good chunk of change, obviously. And as he's walking out, he sees, is it Hank Welding? Maybe I'm
Candy Welding.
Candy Welding, sorry. And Candy Welding. And this is when we get our first flashback of who these guys are. And we realize they're the welders who put together the cable, the gusset, I guess you could call, from what they say. The gusset's the part that slides back and forth and basically held the wire for Jesse not to run away while he was in this makeshift lab that they created for him.
Right. And so they're talking, but they're discussing like, okay, he's gonna break through that. And he goes, "No, he's not. Like an elephant couldn't break through this thing." He goes, "Oh yeah, you want to bet?" He says, "Yeah, sure." So then again, the torture they put on Jesse, they force him to run and then jump like full sprint down the zip line type thing and to see if it breaks. And they do this 5-6 times. And this Neil is the welder. So he had the ability to call the police to end this torture, but he kept Jesse in there. Jesse didn't know who he was at first, but as he sees the door, he realizes who he is. And Neil just kind of says, as they're both leaving, "I was wondering when you're going to figure out who you knew who I was." And they both leave.
Yeah. These guys, we'll see them again in this, but obviously it's like you said, they don't really play a key part in the show, which makes them a little less eventful and a little less personal to us, because we're like, okay, well, they're just two dummies. Even if he did have the chance to save Jesse, it's still not the same as if he was in the show from the beginning. But yeah, no, so it gives Jesse enough time, enough money and time to go see another great character in the show. He's only in it for one episode. But we get to revisit Robert Forster, aka the vacuum guy.
Yeah. So Jesse knows where he wants to go. He knows his only way out of here is to go see good quality vacuum. And he sees the van, so he knows this is the place. He walks in, there's this woman talking to Forrester about her old Dyson or some old stupid vacuum. I don't know. I prefer sweeping. And she's like, "Okay, I'll bring in my old one." He goes, "Good, but make sure you have help because those are heavy." And Jesse locks the door, puts the close sign up and goes up to him and says, "I want the Hoover Max special, whatever the hell it is. I forget, but I want it." And the guy's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He goes, "Yes, you do. You're the guy." And he's like, I don't have a wire on. The guy goes, "Okay, that'll be, X amount of money." Jesse's like, "Yes, I knew you're the guy." And he's like, "Yeah." And okay. So he says, "Yeah, I got it right here." He counts it out. And he says, whoa. That's for last time when you stood me up. You owe me for last time and this time. And Jesse counts out the money and he's got $123,000. He needs $125,000. And basically Forrester says, thanks, kid, but no, I'm getting that money in full or kick rocks. I could care less about you.
And Jesse's pissed at this point. It's like $1,800. You're gonna snub me this over $1,800, and he's clearly upset. He's like, okay, well, I'm not leaving. Forster goes, basically puts his money in his bag, gives it back to him, says, you can kick rocks and get the hell out of here. Opens the door back. Jesse recloses it, and then we're thinking, okay, well, what's gonna happen now? Confrontation. But no, our vacuum guy goes and calls the police.
Mhm.
And you're thinking, okay, well, this is the end of this scene. But Jesse confronts him and says, no, like you didn't really call the cops here, because if you were to actually call the cops, they wouldn't have told you to hung up and they would have called back right away. And as he's going on this huge spiel, we see the Albuquerque police basically pull up behind them, and Jesse makes a beeline for the side of the side door.
Yeah, and he's running, and Forster's like, don't forget your bag. He grabs the money, runs out the back. But the key thing here is, Shay, is as Forster gives a description of Jesse, but it's a completely inaccurate one. He says he has a tattoo over his eye, says he's at least 6'3". And so he's lying, but at the same time, I think he's knowing full well, okay, I have a client here. he doesn't have the money right now. He's pissing me off. So let's make him earn it a little bit.
Yeah. He also mentions that he is right now, he's the hottest guy in pretty much the state, or you can even say the country, because everybody is trying to look for Jesse. And, as soon as the police leave, Forster gets another call, and it's Jesse. He says, you're true to your word. Mm-hmm. And he says, I am. And he's like, okay, I'll get you your full pay. So we realize Jesse's $2,000 short of what he needs basically to get out of here. And we know that there are two individuals that have more than enough money to help out with that.
Yeah, and funny because I don't think he thought of these two right away, Shay. And we'll talk about this scene because what he does is he calls his parents and he says, hey guys, I saw you guys on the news. Like, do you really think I should turn myself in? They're like, yeah, Jesse. He's okay. Well, do you remember when I was a kid, we used to go for those picnics? Like, yeah, well, can you just meet me there? And they say yes. But Jesse's a smart dude. He's on the street in the car, snaps his burner, and the parents come outside. They're immediately followed by three police cars. Jesse's sitting there. One stays, but they're off in La La Land, looking at up into nowhere, putting on music in the car. And Jesse breaks into the house. I think, Shay, he's looking for some fast cash.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I totally forgot about this right after. And you'd think that there'd be something there. He goes to the house, and at first he's going to their safe. And, he types in his own birthday, realizes that he's no longer the favorite child, types in his younger brother's birthday, and
match.
No cash in there, but we get I would say a World War II like a pistol and a very, very small revolver, and that's basically all we're going to get from them.
Yeah, so he gets to play tricks on his parents one more time. They get a quick cameo. So again, it's another cameo that just kind of comes in there without you thinking about it. So he also goes through their phone book and he gets the address to Candy Welding. So he shows up there, gets over the fence, but as he's about to go in the door, escorts show up, and we see that Neil, Casey, and a few friends have purchased some escorts. They are getting drunk, and they go in there with the ladies for a while.
Yeah. So Jesse's basically just outside waiting for them to quit partying. I believe are we in another cutscene here, or are we? Maybe I'm mistaken.
No, there's a cut right after this scene, right after
Okay.
the boom.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So this is a straight climax scene. 'Cause you're like, well, what's gonna happen here? Jesse's basically just waiting outside the garage for these girls to leave. As soon as they take off, the boys are inside, kind of a little after party. They're doing some lines, having a couple beers, and Jesse just kind of calmly strolls in, and it takes everybody by surprise. Neil and Casey obviously know right away who it is, and Jesse, he's got the gun. He's got the bigger gun, we'll say the World War II style pistol, in and around his waist of his belt.
Yeah.
And
So like you said, he does, and he's like, all I want is $1,800.
yeah,
That's all I'm asking for. I don't want a penny more. That's all I need. And like you said, they're on drugs, and Neil is really kind of tweaking because he's like, no, I'll shoot you for it. And just like, I prefer not to, like, it's $1,800. Like, you really get like over 1,800? And Casey's like, Neil, you gave him third of the money. Like, you
he didn't even
that
know.
could have been mine. And he goes like, shut up, Casey. And he says this about 3 to 4 times during this monologue.
Yeah, and you're right. He's like, we'll do a little shoot off for it. They make fun of his gun. They're like, okay, we get a little 22. It's not a high caliber bullet. And he's like, okay, well, we'll just shoot off. You're my 45 versus your 22. If I kill you, I'll take your money out of your car. If you kill me, my money's at the top drawer of the shelf behind you. Winner takes it. And you can see the room tense up at this point, but Jesse remains very, very calm. And you're like, what is going to happen? Everyone else is starting to like basically splat against the wall. They're kind of like hiding. You see Casey look, and he's got his pistol in basically with his coat pocket right beside him. They go, well, okay, what the hell's going to happen here? And like you said, Neil, little cut. He's like, okay, I got this. Like this guy's not going to outshoot me.
Yeah.
And he goes to 1, 2, 3, and as soon as he goes to reach, Jesse, with the smaller pistol that his parents had, shoots Neil through his coat pocket. Probably uses the all 5, 6, 5 bullets he has, and takes him right out. Everyone's kind of shocked for a second, and then Casey springs into action, and we get a little bit of a war bout.
Yeah, Casey, thankfully, is a terrible shot.
The worst shot I've ever seen.
Yeah, he is like aiming for the invisible man on the ceiling, because he's just, he's like every bad guy in a movie. He's shooting a foot over
He's
Jesse.
a stormtrooper. Yeah, he's so bad.
Jesse goes through multiple bullets himself, but finally gets him right in the head, goes through some glass, that breaks. The guys are still holding the coke at this point. They're just like, and before they can run out, Jesse's like, give me your IDs. They throw them on the ground. He goes, okay, I know where you live. I know where your families are. If you tell anyone about this, I'll fucking kill you. And they're just like, okay, we're not gonna tell anybody. And they just run away. And Jesse is able to snag the cash. He puts his gun in the bag, but he does a little bit more of a theatrical exit than we might have expected.
Yeah, exactly. You're thinking, okay, he's probably just gonna drive away, but he took a note or two from my good friend Walt and said, I got to get rid of this evidence. I left a mess behind me. I can't have any traces of this back to me. So what does he do? He turns on one of the torches in and amongst all the tanks in this. And maybe not many of people listening have ever been in a welding shop, but this is probably something you should not do.
Highly, highly dangerous.
And he drives off after a huge explosion, blows up the entire welding shop, and it's kind of like one of those drive off into the sunset moments for Jesse. But he has his cash, and he's flush, and he's ready to make his escape. But you got to think that was a ballsy move to leave everything to chance But if you know the mindset of Jesse,
He's got nothing to lose.
he's got nothing to lose. He's like, okay, if I do this, I'm flush for I got more money than I need, which is great. I'll be able to probably live most of my life carefree. All I gotta do is, beat this guy. Have you ever seen that in a movie though, Juggy? I was looking this up myself. I probably looked for about an hour and a half. The shooting from your coat pocket. Have you seen that in another movie or TV show? Maybe.
Good question.
I feel like I have, but I can't pinpoint it to anywhere.
Yeah, it had to have been in like a Western type movie for sure.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I've seen it too, but nothing comes to mind. But it was certainly interesting to see him, maybe like a De Niro movie.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
trying
I
to
can see that.
maybe I could see him doing that, although those guys were more stabbers than shooters.
Yeah.
Pesci in particular. But so this is all good, but we have a flashback. At first, you kind of think it's in the real world because Jesse's like in a hot tub type whirlpool, dumping water on his head. But then he's comes out. You can see he's on the phone with somebody, and he's like, "Do you miss me? Oh yeah, how you gonna make me prove it?" And he kind of knocks on the door, and we see knocks on the door next to him, and Walter comes out, and the two are going for breakfast.
Yeah, we get a really interesting scene, and it's not like it just cuts right to breakfast. It allows them to walk down the hallway,
Yeah.
and just the two of them walking together brings in a lot of nostalgia for someone who's watching this after 4 or 5 years of not seeing the show. So it's this is obviously the biggest of all the flashbacks, I would say. Maybe not for Jesse in particular, but for a viewer of the show. And we get to see this funny scene, and I'll mention this after, but Jesse rounds this plate of food and he lets out one, yeah, bitch.
Yeah.
And this is funny because I read something as we're watching this, or after I watched the movie. This was it's so solely improvised by Aaron Paul, as he looked at the script and said, there's not one yeah bitch in the whole script. So he's like, I gotta get one in there. So he thought this was an appropriate time to do so. So happy he did so. It's just kind of a funny scene where he's actually brings back his old self.
Yeah, I think I've heard him on like Kimmel or a late night show where he said that's what he gets the most on the street. Like he gets, yeah, bitch all the time. Like he hears it all the time. Said it can be problematic because he's got young children and people are just yelling bitch at him. And it's kind of, you're like, why the hell are you yelling that at my dad? But so they sit down, like you said, Jesse's got a mountain of food. It's like Thanksgiving. And Walt is kind of coughing. Jesse gets up to comfort him a little bit because he's having a coughing fit. He's like, you got to eat. You got to hydrate. Like, come on. Walt's like, yeah, okay, I will. But it's this scene where Walt says, you know what you should do? You should go to college. Like, you're smart, Jesse. You can do this. And he said, what would you do with that? And Jesse goes, well, maybe study sports medicine, which is completely out of the blue. It doesn't seem like a sports guy. Walt's like, yeah, you could do that. Or, like business and marketing. Like, you could teach the class right now on that. Like you could do this, Jesse. And he's actually showing him some support and compassion for once.
Yeah. And I think at this point, I think Walter believes he's probably not going to be, because this is still RV time. So Walter, this time frame, Walter's still battling cancer. We don't know to what extent, but obviously, trying to help his young companion / young partner out, in the sense like, okay, well, you have a life after this. He's like, yeah, I don't know what I'd do. I would give anything to have a restart in life and be where you're at right now. And Jesse's kind of like, oh yeah, well, it's food for thought. But no, it is a cool scene where you get to see a bright moment between the two, as there wasn't very many at the last season, as we all know.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I think this was a big scene just to get the two of them together, like you said, especially for fans to see them together, something different. And I'm not going to ruin Better Call Saul, but they haven't been in it yet. They haven't. There've been other characters, but we'll see them in the final season. that remains to be seen. But I enjoyed seeing them in this scene again. We pivot back. Forrester is dropping off Jesse in Alaska. He's basically hiding inside this truck and this little, he's in like this little cat crawl space, gets off the truck. Forrester makes him, list off his social security, his dad's last job, his mother's maiden name. So basically he's got a whole new life. And before they depart, Jesse gives Forrester a letter to mail to Brock.
Yeah, we don't even know who it's tell until the very, until Jesse drives away, and we can see that the letter has Brock and his new address. And do you find it funny that he read the letter? Like, he sits there and reads the letter in front of him, and I'm like, why the
I
hell
wonder if he's worried that it's just not going to compromise him. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, he's thinking of covering his own ass. Maybe Jesse tries to fuck him over and says, hey, like, this is the guy who, basically got me out of this. But yeah, it's just funny that I thought he read the letter, but then, it's
or to
touching
make sure that he doesn't say where he's going or something, because that could also compromise him.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's his last letter to Brock, who he probably feels, just awful for. He's now a fostered kid and probably staying with his grandmother. And this is it. This is Jesse's new life. He said, do you want to say goodbye to anybody else? And Jesse says, no, I'm with anyone else. I've paid my wrongs, you could say.
Yeah. So they shake hands. Forrester was even a little emotional reading the letter. I found he seemed to really kind of get caught off by it. So clearly it's got something in there. And so Jesse gets in the car, he starts driving off, and it's this scene where, and I really enjoyed this. You see Jane sitting next to him, and you talk about closure. This is it. He still hasn't really processed that he went through Andrea, but he loved Jane. And she says on a real journey that they had, the best decisions are made. The best decisions are made by you. The decisions made by yourself. And he's made this decision. He's in Alaska. He's got his whole life in front. What he does now is entirely up to him. It's not up to Walt. It's not up to Gustavo, to whomever. He has nobody to worry about. He has nobody to act for other than Jesse Pinkman for the first time in his life.
He's accomplished the impossible, being a man who's been able to finally get away and stay away from this life. You might argue Walter was able to get away, but clearly he had motive to come back. He was fueled by hatred for Jack, and he knew he had loose ends. Jesse has no more loose ends. This letter he wrote to Brock, clearly that's it. That's it for him. He doesn't really care for his family all that much. His family's not that great to him. He has nothing else to go back for. So, like we said, it was a great tribute to see Jane too. I mean, obviously I think that was the end of season 2 that she dies, and we haven't seen her since. So, love that they brought her back as well.
Yeah. So, and that's end of movie, end of series, you could say. So. Yeah, 10 scale for Shay. Where's your ranking? I
said a solid 6. I said, room for improvement, but a great tribute to an unbelievable show. You see some of these shows sometimes that tend to scatter for one, but they try and recreate it, and they try and do new things, and they do too much, I find. But this was the perfect subtle amount of the past, but also creating something new, and trying to get away. And like I said, it had an episode vibe to it, which I loved. I thought we were going to come in here and get this action-packed, thriller, like Jesse going out guns blazing, and that's not at all what I got. So I was really happy with that. The only critique I had, I guess, it felt like I felt like too much was clouded by the past, and these cutback scenes. I felt like they were just a little too aggressive. Like you said, it was probably about half and half. I would have liked to see them dial that down a little bit to pave way for more story in the present.
Right.
Maybe a different storyline. Maybe it's Jesse saying goodbye to another character doing something. Maybe maybe he visits Huel. Who knows? You know what I mean? Or something to that nature.
Right.
But that's really my only critique. Other than that, I thought it was a great exclamation point on a great show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd give it probably a 6 as well. I enjoyed it more than, some of the spin-offs that we see now, or even shows that are making new shows, like you're recreating something. Like I saw that they're making another or a new creation of How I Met Your Mother. Shay, I don't know if you
Oh
saw
yeah,
it. Hilary Duff
I
is in
do
it.
know.
And I thought the original show sucked, so I don't really know why they want to do that, but I'll be there for you, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, 6 out of good for Aaron Paul. Another big question I had for you is, did they need to make this movie?
Um, that's a great question. I'm sure if you're a diehard fan, this is your favorite show of all time. You can't get enough of it. I feel like this was made for those people. You know what I mean? I don't feel like it was
Right.
made for just anybody. It's not a show you obviously can watch without having no background on watching the show prior, right?
Right. Would you
But yeah,
say
no.
this movie was like the Star Wars movies after the original 6?
Yeah, a little
Because
bit.
I love the originals, but I have no interest in, like, I just love the storyline with Darth Vader and Luke and Hans. I just don't need more. That was enough for me.
No, yeah, I agree. It was good, but like I said, it's just for those diehard fans who wanted that little bit extra. And obviously, it's Netflix. They don't get original thought in their head. They're gonna spew off stuff from other places or create garbage like Red Notice, which we've mentioned in the past.
I haven't seen it, but I know it sucks.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, good for them, but I'm glad they let Vince Gilligan do it. It would have been awful if it was some dippity-doo director and writer
Yeah,
that
if it's
had no
not
clue.
Vince, don't do it.
It would not be the same. So I'm glad they let him do it instead of somebody else, someone from the Netflix team. So yeah, I mean, overall, do I think it was necessary? Probably not, but it was kind of special in the sense that it did recreate a lot of memories for past characters.
Yeah, I remember when I saw it coming, I was beyond excited. I mean, it was nostalgic, like you said, and I had only gone like a year without watching it. So I watched it for my first year, your second year university,
Right.
and watched it rapidly. But yeah, it was good, not great, but there's rare that you see a second or a movie following a show, or The Many Saints in Newark, I don't think got as much praise as this movie did. It's put to counteract the two. Haven't seen it yet, but I haven't heard great things. But great show, great end to it. Jesse gets away, which is obviously something we like to see because he was just a great character throughout. Moving forward, Shay, I can't believe we're already done Breaking Bad.
I know.
Just the other day that we started season 1, episode 1, talking about Crazy 8. But we're through it. And I said the floor is up to you, which you gave me options, which was nice of you, even though you could have picked whatever. I would have watched whatever you wanted to watch. And I think I know what we're going to cover. But again, you can call an audible. You can be like the New York Giants today and fire Joe Judge after saying they weren't going to fire him yesterday. So what are we going to be covering going forward here on To The Point?
I had to value your time in this decision, Juggy, because I know you got college football, that's coming into an end. NFL's coming into an end. It's like, if I'm going to squeeze a couple hours, I want to make sure that it's worth it for my guy to do so. So I picked Sneaky Pete, the Amazon original. We haven't touched an Amazon original show yet.
I like that.
So I thought we might as well give it a try. It's 3 seasons long. I'm thinking right now we'll probably try the first season, see how we both feel about it. If we both like it, then maybe we'll continue. If not, we can switch on to something else.
Love it.
Giovanni Ribisi, the main character. We've spoke before this. He's the main bad guy in Ted. But he's also been on A Million Ways to Die. He plays the Seth MacFarlane's best friend in that. Yeah, it's just great flick. Yeah, great funny flick. He's in, he plays some very supportive characters. Avatar, Saving Private Ryan. He's in, so he's been around for quite a while, and I think he's a pretty prominent actor himself. So this is kind of his first star. I'm interested to see if he takes this on. A little background into it, I guess. It's an ex-con who looking to escape his old life and ends up taking the identity of his old cellmate. And I guess that comes along with a bunch, like the old cellmate's crazy family. The old cellmate, his name is Pete, from what I can tell from the review.
Right.
And I'm excited to break it down. This is a show that's been on my list for probably a couple of years. I didn't know what to think about when I first read it, but as far as I can tell, it's supposed to be a good one. And like I said, it's Amazon, so I'm glad we get to try something new.
Yeah, and Amazon has had a really good track record of shows. A lot of them go multiple seasons. They don't get axed quick. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to starting that next week.
And one last thing that I only learned this as I'm looking it up right before we hop on. Executive producer just had some new one, Bryan Cranston. So he continue on with Cranston. Wow. I know I was pretty. I was like, oh shit, like finally put this guy in her past, but no, he's still very much present, and he's going to influence this. So maybe we'll see a little Breaking Bad influence in our new criminal show.
Maybe there'll be a cameo.
Maybe
from Cranston. Yeah, interesting that he's involved in this. That's 3 straight shows for us involving Cranston. I mean, if I send him a DM and he doesn't come on this podcast, I'll really start to be offended now, because
I'd be starstruck. I wouldn't know what to say.
I would love to interview that man, but maybe one day after Bill Simmons and the Rewatchables podcast gets him on, maybe he'll come talk to us. But
right.
I know it's busy time for you, Shay. Obviously you and Kennedy are working from home because of the kind of the stay-at-home order for offices right now. How's that going, and what do you have on the go the rest of this week?
Not too much, my guy. Just stay busy with work, like you said. There's a ton going on right now. I'm kind of like the spry duck. I'm still eager to take it all in and to get things done. Ask me this in a couple months and I'll have a very different answer for you. But no, I'm excited. It's nice. Obviously, working from home is not the greatest. Before I had the option, I'd go back and forth within the office, but just trying to take it in. So lots of great TV on the go. Like you said, we got a lot of jam-packed weekend of NFL next weekend with the wild card weekend, which I'm really excited to see. Hopefully beaching it, not doing a goddamn thing. Yeah. But other than that, not staying up late to watch my Leafs win against Vegas. So other than that, not a ton. What do you got on the go for the rest of the week?
Yeah, gonna be doing a few podcasts with it's a Fillmore week on the podcast. Creighton is going to join me tomorrow. Creighton and Walker. We're going to talk about kind of the middle of the season, the NHL, big storylines, talk about some awards, potentially mid-season awards being handed out. Talk about maybe Evander Kane going to the Oilers.
I know, I saw that.
Interesting. Second, third chances for that guy.
Fourth, fifth chances.
He's a good teammate though. We got to remember that. We'll talk about that. Our friend Casey will join me on Thursday. We'll talk about some golf, hockey, amongst other things. Talk about your guys' Browns, what they're going to do this offseason. Apparently today they announced they're going to keep Baker Mayfield Jr. the third. So it looks like he's going to remain in Cleveland. And like you said, super wild card weekend, 6 games, love it. Some good hockey this week too. You mentioned your Leafs in Vegas. You got Bruce. There it is. Get back on the ice tonight against the Panthers. Klay Thompson being back in the NBA. I love to see. That was such a great. He looked fired up. Like he just looked so excited. I love seeing that. They play the Grizzlies tonight in a sneaky good game because the Grizzlies are red hot. And of course, talk about Joe Judge being fired finally by the New York Giants. I don't know how Brian Flores got fired before that clown show, but there's always something to talk about with the NFL. And as you know, I don't mind bumping my gums a little bit about it.
Yeah, we have to get on with a a pod soon here with Shooting Belt and talk about maybe halfway through the NBA. I know he's got a lot to say. He's a pretty vocal guy. So
I'd love to.
anytime,
Yeah,
anytime you want to get on.
I'll get Sports McMule on the horn, and we'll make that happen real soon.
Yeah, if he can give me a tip or two, because I can't seem to win any of these bets, you or him. But no, other than that, I'm look forward to listening to the pod. Is this Walker's first take on the show, or has he been on before?
Second appearance. He did a football show the first time. So
oh, he did. Okay, well, I'm excited to hear him.
Yeah,
Big daddy guy.
Yeah. Well, have a great rest of the week, man, and we'll talk next week.
All right, see you soon.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the night. We'll talk tomorrow. Until then, we'll talk soon.